All right, diving right in today, we're tackling Gen Z mental health and this book, The Anxious Generation.
Oh, it's a fascinating one for sure.
Yeah, it really makes you think, what would it be like to wake up one day and bam, smartphones are everywhere?
Right, and you basically miss the whole transition. That's Gen Z's reality, right?
Yeah.
Totally.
We're going to explore some pretty thought-provoking concepts today, like, have you heard of phone-based childhood?
Sounds pretty self-explanatory, but I bet there's more to it.
There is, and we'll get into that. We'll also look at how social media hits boys and girls differently.
Interesting. I'm ready to dive in.
Me too. Let's start with the hard stuff.
Okay, brace yourselves, folks, because it's a bit grim. The book starts with some stark statistics about depression in teens.
Uh-oh, yeah, those are always eye-opening.
Between 2010 and 2015, depression rates in U.S. teens, they basically more than doubled.
Oh, doubled. That's huge.
It's not just some gradual thing either. It's a sudden spike. And here's the thing. It's not just the U.S. This trend, same thing in other Western countries too.
Huh, so it's not just an American problem then?
Nope, it's bigger than that. Haidt even shares a story. This parent struggling with their daughter. The daughter's mood swings, totally tied to her smartphone.
Yikes. So even when the phone was gone, the problem lingered.
That's exactly it. This girl goes to a summer camp, no phones allowed, and her mood stabilizes. But then back home, phone back in hand, the issues return.
Almost like the phone, I don't know, rewired her brain or something.
That's a great way to think about it. Haidt calls this the Great Rewiring.
Ooh, catchy title.
Right. But it's more than just the tech. It's also the cultural shift towards overprotection. Kids today, all the safety gear, but no chance to, actually ride the bike.
So we're basically setting their brains up for a world that doesn't exist anymore.
In a way, yeah. Their brains are ready for real challenges, but they're stuck in this digital bubble.
Yeah.
He talks about 3 things kids need that are missing in a phone-based childhood. Social interaction, risky play, and this thing he calls prestige bias.
Prestige bias. Okay, break that down for me.
It's how kids are wired to learn. They copy the majority, but also the cool kids, the prestigious ones. But social media, it messes with who those cool kids are.
I see. So instead of like a doctor or a teacher, they're looking up to some influencer.
Exactly. And those influencers, well, their values might not be the best role models. All right, let's unpack social interaction first. Those face-to-face conversations, crucial for developing emotional intelligence.
Yeah, you learn how to read people, how to respond, right there on the spot.
Exactly. All those nuanced skills that are lost in a quick text. It's like comparing a deep conversation to just a fleeting emoji reaction.
Spot on. Okay, what about risky play?
This one's interesting. Haidt says those small risks, those setbacks kids face, they actually benefit from them. Builds resilience.
I guess that makes sense.
Think of the playgrounds we had as kids. Those super high slides, the spinning merry-go-rounds. You'd never see those today.
Oh, totally. We'd probably all be in lawsuits. But we learned to push ourselves, deal with a few bumps and bruises along the way.
Exactly. Now it's all padded corners and hand sanitizer. We're preventing them from developing the ability to handle challenges later in life.
So we've covered social interaction, risky play, prestige bias. But how does all of this connect back to the smartphones?
Well, Haidt argues that smartphones, they're like experience blockers, preventing kids from really engaging with the world, learning those essential skills.
Like even when they're out there, they're still being pulled back into that digital space.
Precisely. And this becomes even more critical during puberty, when the brain is going through massive rewiring.
Oh yeah, puberty's already a roller coaster. Add in the constant distractions of smartphones, no wonder so many teenagers struggle.
And on top of that, we've lost a lot of those traditional rites of passage that used to mark the transition to adulthood. Think graduations, driver's licenses, those first jobs.
Those were like milestones, giving you a sense of accomplishment, direction. Without those, it's like navigating this huge world without a map.
Now, onto those 4 foundational harms of a phone-based childhood. These affect both boys and girls, but we'll delve into the gender stuff later. First up, social deprivation. All that screen time, it displaces real face-to-face interaction.
It's ironic, right? They're constantly connected, but feeling more isolated than ever.
It's a paradox for sure. Next, we have sleep deprivation. Blue light, late-night scrolling, we all know the drill. But for teenagers, this lack of sleep, it has serious consequences.
Have you seen the sleep data for teens? It's scary how little they're actually getting.
It's a major concern, no doubt. Then there's attention fragmentation. All those addictive apps and notifications, they're training kids to have shorter and shorter attention spans.
Like, we're raising a generation in a digital skitter box, rewarding them for constant engagement. Remember those variable ratio reinforcement schedules we talked about? Just like slot machines, you keep pulling that lever.
Powerful analogy. And finally, there's addiction itself. Many apps and games are designed to be addictive, exploiting the same brain mechanisms that drive gambling and substance abuse.
So we've got social deprivation, sleep deprivation, attention fragmentation, and addiction. That's quite a cocktail. But we're just getting started.
You got it. We'll be back soon to unpack how all of this plays out differently for boys and girls. Stay tuned. All right, welcome back, everyone. So we just left off talking about those 4 foundational harms.
Right. Social deprivation, sleep deprivation, attention fragmentation, and addiction. Quite a mouthful.
Definitely. And now let's look at how these things affect girls and boys differently.
Okay, so let's start with the girls. What makes social media so particularly harmful for them?
Well, one big thing is that constant social comparison. Girls are bombarded with these images of perfect bodies, perfect lives.
Oh, yeah, I totally get that. Even as an adult, it's hard not to feel the pressure. Like everyone online is just so flawless, you know?
And it's not just the curated feeds. Haidt talks about how visually oriented platforms like Instagram, Snapchat, they really make those anxieties about appearance worse.
Yeah, it's all about filters and angles. Presenting this idealized version of yourself must be tough for young girls to deal with.
It is. Haidt actually tells this story about a 10-year-old girl, Alexis Spence. Her life basically got taken over by Instagram, led to anxiety, depression, even self-harm.
A 10-year-old, that's just heartbreaking. It really highlights how vulnerable young girls are to this stuff.
Absolutely. And then to make things even more complicated, emotions are contagious. Happiness can spread, but so can sadness.
Oh, wow. So if one girl is feeling down, it can actually affect her whole friend group.
Exactly. And girls tend to be more open about their emotions than boys. So those negative feelings can spread really quickly, like a digital wildfire.
Makes you wonder how many girls out there are struggling in silence. But what about boys? Are they immune to all of this?
Well, they're definitely spending just as much time on their phones.
Yeah, true.
But Haidt argues that while girls' mental health decline was sudden and dramatic, boys have been dealing with more of a silent crisis, and for much longer.
A silent crisis? What does that look like?
Think of it as more of a slow burn. The data shows this long-term decline in boys' engagement with the real world, their sense of purpose, overall well-being. It's like they're slowly losing their spark.
So not the same sharp increase in anxiety and depression as girls, but a different kind of struggle.
Right. And Haidt suggests that this might be tied to some big societal shifts, the decline of physical labor, the rise of the service economy.
So those more traditional markers of masculinity like physical strength, manual skills, they're not as valued anymore.
Exactly. In a world that increasingly values tech skills and communication, some boys might be feeling lost, like the old roadmap to manhood has disappeared.
Wow, that's a powerful way to put it. I don't know, have you noticed this trend at all? Maybe with your own sons, nephews, young men in your life? It's definitely something to think about, but don't worry, it's not all doom and gloom.
Not at all. There's good news.
Oh, I'm ready for some good news. Hit me with it.
Time for solutions. Haidt doesn't just leave us hanging with problems. He's got a whole toolbox of ideas.
Okay, I like the sound of that. A toolbox.
And he doesn't just blame one group. He says governments, tech companies, schools, parents, we all have a role to play.
So it's a team effort then. All right, let's start with the big players. Governments. What can they do? What does Haidt say?
Well, first off, he's all about stronger regulations online. Like raising the age of internet adulthood.
You mean like when kids can access all those apps and websites?
Exactly. Right now it's 13 in the U.S.
13? That's crazy. They're barely teenagers.
Seriously. Haidt says it should be at least 16. More in line with things like driving or working.
That makes sense. So older teens, more mature, maybe better equipped to handle the online world.
Right. He also wants better age verification to actually enforce those limits.
Yeah, because right now it's so easy for kids to lie about their age online.
Totally. Another thing he's big on, holding tech companies accountable for those addictive design features.
You know, those endless scrolling feeds, the constant notifications, it's like they're designed to keep us hooked.
They are. Haidt says governments need to step in and say, hey, stop exploiting kids for profit. Prioritize well-being over engagement.
I'm 100% on board with that. But what about the tech companies themselves? Can they do anything beyond just following the rules?
Haidt challenges them to go further. Embrace what he calls humane technology.
Humane technology, huh? What's that all about?
Technology that supports human flourishing, not just maximizing screen time and data collection.
Okay, so basically a complete shift in mindset for Silicon Valley. Seems like a pretty tall order.
It is, but a necessary one. We can't keep sacrificing our mental health for the sake of convenience or entertainment.
True. But it's not just about the digital world, right?
Right. Haidt also says government should make the real world more child-friendly. Safe public spaces for play, investments in youth programs, even bringing back some of those rites of passage we talked about.
Yeah, like rethinking what childhood should be like in this day and age.
Now let's move on to schools. What's their role in all of this?
I'm guessing Haidt's a fan of those no phones in class policies.
You bet. He says smartphones are way too distracting for learning. And beyond banning phones, he's all about more recess, more opportunities for risky play. Remember those high slides and merry-go-rounds?
Oh, I wish those were the good old days.
Right. More time outdoors, more freedom to explore, less time glued to screens.
That sounds like a recipe for happier, healthier kids to me.
There's also this cool idea Haidt highlights. The Let Grow Project. It's like a homework assignment, but for building independence.
Homework for independence. What's that all about?
It can be anything, really. Walking the dog, making dinner, running a small errand. The point is, give kids a chance to do things on their own, without parents hovering.
So a little push outside their comfort zone, help them realize they can handle more than they think.
Exactly. And finally, we come to the parents. Haidt knows it's tough to say no to smartphones when all their friends have them.
It's the hardest. Feels like you're fighting a losing battle sometimes.
It's about setting the tone, creating the culture in your family. And you're not alone. Haidt encourages parents to connect with others who feel the same way, build a support system, push back against those societal pressures.
So it's not just about saying no, it's about offering alternatives. Real-world experiences, encouraging play, allowing for some healthy risk-taking.
Finding that balance, right? Technology is great, but it shouldn't rule our lives.
I like that, finding the balance.
And that leads us to Haidt's final challenge. If our brains evolved in a world of face-to-face interaction, real-world challenges, how do we create digital environments that support that, not hinder it?
That's a big question, one we all need to be thinking about.
It is.
Well, I don't know about you all, but I'm feeling a lot more hopeful than when we started. This doesn't have to be the new normal.
We have the knowledge, the tools, the power to make a difference. Create a world where our kids can truly thrive.
Well said. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the anxious generation. We'll see you next time.